All right. Earnestly podcast coming to you August 22nd, 2021. This is my second podcast of the night with an old friend, author, but really good friend of nearly 20 years. I think we've known each other, what,
Yeah,
8,
about
17, 18 years?
about
It
2000.
was in a bookstore, a mutual friend of a bookstore.
Yeah, 2000.
Eddie Banks,
Yeah,
friend of pod. Ed, what's up? It's been about 2 years since we did the podcast together, right?
it's been too long. Two
Yeah,
years
yeah.
too long, man.
How you
I think
been?
when you had me on was to promote my first book,
Yeah.
which I'm only saying that because I wrote another one and it comes out in May.
Oh, so you're done.
Yeah, we're still doing it. I'm still finishing up a few things, but yeah, my Heavy Metal Africa has a sequel per se. It's an academic,
Right.
more focused academic look at what I did the first time.
You did come on the show though. I think after that, I think maybe one or two more times, and you were saying that you had started, drafting the second book, and
Yeah.
then COVID happened, and then we kind of like we obviously always keep in touch, but we never spoke really on air again. We've been saying that we'll do it at some point, but we never did it. But now we're here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, we're here. We're here. We're still going through COVID too, but here we are.
You're in PA now, right? Still in PA.
My home state, my
Yep.
beautiful home state.
So what got us here to do this podcast today, especially, you were in the T-shirt number one. As I've mentioned on the show, I think a couple episodes back. This month is the 30th anniversary of Metallica's Black Album. As you hold in the vinyl right now on video, watching the show on Skype.
With your there.
So were you a Metallica fan back in '91? Were you listening to Metallica at that point? We're about the same age.
Yeah, no, that first time I had heard Metallica before and I had heard of Metallica before. I listened to the records. I remember the excitement that the Injustice for All album created because of the single One. When that video hit, ooh,
Yeah.
I was, whoa, what is, what did I just hear? I think a lot of people had that, and I had known the people liking Metallica, so I listened to them. I don't think I quite got it, but the more I listened to it, I really started to like appreciate what they were doing. Because that was metal, like hair metal had like was kind of fading out. Was some of the bands were still relevant, but some of the bands were starting to fade out, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. That's what got me into heavy metal bands like
Was it?
Poison. Yeah, and then I like Skid Row, but Skid Row wasn't really a hair metal band. They were, a step on the gas pedal type metal band.
Edgier than hair metal, I would say. Yeah, a little edgier.
But Metallica was different than all of them. They were. I remember there was no, it was just jeans and t-shirt guys, and they didn't look like they were growing long hair for an image, man. They looked like they meant it. But then, jeez, I remember. I mean, I think we all have this moment. If you're our age, when um Metallica had really just built a name for themselves in the underground, and they were an arena rock band. Their albums were selling really well. The first four albums sold incredibly well, and they're still selling really well. But
Yeah.
he had hyped up the lead single for the Black album. It's funny to say it, but it's Inner Sandman, but it's the lead single, and they, the whole video premiere and everything like that. And I remember watching that, and it just, what was that?
Yeah.
It was different, but it was still. And then immediately, like you heard the song for the first time, and that riff just stuck in my head.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was so. Yeah, I was very much excited and very can recall this lucidly, like when this was, because then every kid in middle school had that. At least the kids that I was hanging out with, the cassette tapes were on the Walkmans on the school buses. Like, I want to hear it too. Let me hear it. I want to hear this. Man, that was crazy. I didn't get it for months later because I was in middle school. I didn't have a job.
Me too. So you're 41 too. Are you 42 or 41? I'm 41.
I'm 42. Yeah.
You're on me. So I was 11 years old when the Black Album came out. Didn't
I mean,
understand metal at the time at
yeah.
all. I was still not into metal at the time yet. However, going to middle school, I did know who they were, and you would see kids with T-shirts on. So
Yeah.
they had an impact. They had an impact. And just the fact I knew who they were, I thought wasn't impactful enough because they're like, again,
Those guys that were wearing the Metallica shirts.
yeah.
I remember some of them. I'm not going to name them, but like I can, they had, some of them had long hair. Some of them were like sneaking piercings, away from their parents, because we were in middle school and they were the cool. Some of them were like cool kids, or they were the burnout drug. Everyone just labeled them out. Turns out these guys were playing D&D on Friday nights, and
Right.
they're all probably working for tech companies now, but they were there was something that happened to them too, because all of a sudden Metallica was their band. Like you had bands like Metallica and Megadeth, and these were their bands and Pantera. But then those bands just crossed over, and MTV put, Enter Sandman on was probably like every 8 minutes or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that video was everywhere because that just those kids, the look on their face is like, that was our band, man. Now the football players are listening to them too. Like, yeah.
What's funny is that for me, and I've shared a story before in the show. So I became a Metallica fan not in the Black Album era, but technically the Black Album was the last record they put out when I became a fan. I became a fan 5 years after the Black Album. Before Load, though, I became a fan before Load even was released, like 3 months before it was released. I shared a story, this year's SC 25 year anniversary of Load. So my exposure to Metallica in 1996, in February 1996, prior to Load coming out in June, was so the last record is the Black Album. And now, granted, the Black Album wasn't the album that got me into them. The first song I got into Metallica was the Four Horsemen on Kill 'Em All. That hooked Metallica. And then my buddy Leo, who we're trying to get on this podcast to do this one day, because he's a diehard to this day. He actually travels to see him live, even around the world now. He went to fucking Sweden, I think, a couple years ago, and showed me some pictures from Sweden, from the Hardwire tour. But it was so weird because when I became a fan, in February, March of '96, Load doesn't come out for another 3 months. So I'm thinking, okay, well, this is the last album that came out, was the Black Album. So I'm thinking that we're gonna get something more similar to this sound. And then Load comes out, and Load is completely fucking different from everything I ever heard. That was wacky for me because the time when I became a fan and how that came about and the Black Album, all that. It was a weird time to become a fan of the band. Like, wait, you guys sound like this and nice like this? Like, I don't get it. You got a country song too? What? I don't get it.
Yeah, that's the reason why we're talking about Black Album, not Load.
Well, but
Load, by the way, I think it's still a really strong album, and hearing it back, it still sounds.
But Eddie, here's the thing, Eddie. Though now in hindsight, Load is actually my second favorite record of theirs, behind Justice.
That's gonna happen because you had a lot of time to live with it. You've had a lot of, So wait, so Black Album is not your favorite? I don't know. Black Album is still polarizing for fans of Metallica and for fans of metal, because some metal heads that I know, some metal fans would argue that that's not a metal album. It's a hard rock album, and this was Metallica leaving the genre. But I mean, at the same time, the album I think is a great metal album. I think it still rocks. But
I mean, the only difference between that Metallica album and everything before was the production and the songs are shorter.
This is production incredible.
It's incredible production, and it's a focus on the vocals, a focus on the guitar sounds, and the songs are more to the point. They weren't doing 9-minute songs anymore at this point.
That's right. It was to the point, but the production is actually, I think, what's helped the album kind of endure. It's actually, I think, is what helped the album just skyrocket.
Yeah.
Bob Rock.
A fucking number on that record. Eddie, like that album, it's not my favorite album of all time, but that album for me actually was the album that not just the album itself, but also the environment around the album, because they put so much money into the record, not just on the album itself, but the documentaries that came with that. It changed my life. The year and a half Live Metallica documentary, it's 2 parts. Is one with them doing the Black Album, and then the one Be on the Road for the first 2 legs of the tour. That changed my life. That was the first time I was able to see a band put together an album from scratch, and that was when I became okay. I want to be in a band now. I want to be in a band because I saw this.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, that was the documentary.
I think they really did actually put together that album from scratch. I don't know much. There's a history of the Black Album I'm not familiar with, which is coming from the Injustice era, which age now. Like, how much of it did they have even started?
You mean the songs?
Yeah, like how much of it was already written before they.
So, for what I know, and I'm the diehard here, obviously, so I know a lot about the band. A lot of those riffs, Sandman riffs that Kirk wrote, actually, he wrote the actual main hook of Sandman. A lot of just those songs were written on the road on Justice. Like, some riffs were written even before that, but they had started working on the album, like I think even like late '89, like working on songs and whatever it may be. And then once they asked Bob Rock to do the album, they got locked in. James Lawrence locked in, in L.A. and just really started writing these songs together and shortening the songs too. They knew that they wanted to have something different from the Justice album. As good as Justice album was, and it's my favorite record of theirs, they couldn't do a second Justice album. I think
they can't ever do the same album ever again.
No, they can't.
At this point, as long as they've been a band, there's something about the. Oh, they did record it in L.A. I thought they
101 Studios.
Yeah, I thought they recorded in Vancouver.
No. Well, no, actually, no. They no. Parts of the album were done in Vancouver too. If you watch the documentary, they did it from this album started in August 1990 was when they got into the studio. And it ended in May of 1991. Okay, mix and mastering that was done in May 91. Now, sometime around March, April, they went to Vancouver to take a break. James flew out there with Bob Rock. You can see it in the documentary. And they did a couple of production things on the album, wrote some songs, all that kind of stuff. So Vancouver was part of it for like 2 weeks.
That's Bob Rock's hometown.
Yeah, they went for Vancouver 2 weeks just to kind of, change up the scenery a little bit, and they came back to LA to finish the record. So Vancouver technically was part of the journey.
Yeah.
And how you know that because they went to a strip club and yeah.
That's yeah, man. That album's so sharp. It still sounds like everyone. I think a lot of people have tried to emulate the way that record sounds, and you just can't. He just EQ'd the hell out of that record.
Yeah, you know what got me about the record? The thing that stood out to me the most about production, the crunch on "Sad But True," for example. They put boxes around the speakers to get that like that really strong downbeat, the fucking guitar riff, the muscle. That's what when I tell you how that album changed my life. It was they did things on that record that you wouldn't see any other bands do. Like Bob Rock really put a focus on two things, really, three things, really, in my opinion. That was a focus on Lars's snare with the muscle, James's vocals, with a more focus, and the guitar sound.
Yeah.
And how sonic it sounded. Like I said, Sad But True. The reason it sounds so heavy, the dun, 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 is because they literally put a box around the guitar amp to keep the sound enclosed, to get the muscle, to get the extra. That documentary changed my life, dude. I'm telling you that the things that Bob Rock did in that album really, like, if you're a musical connoisseur, you appreciate it.
Also also detuned. I think it's the correct song they ever wrote in a down tuning, but it wasn't written that way. It was either the engineer or Bob Rock suggested to them that they tune that down because that riff just carried so much weight with that.
Not only tune it down and slow it down. Like if you listen to the original demo, Sad But True, actually, it's a lot faster. It's a little bit faster, like a hair faster.
Yeah. That's a great riff.
Oh God, it's like a big orgasm. Seriously.
I mean, that album had 5 singles: Enter Sandman, Sad But True, Wherever I May Roam, The Unforgiven, and Nothing Else Matters.
Right.
And Enter Sandman, I've heard, we've all heard 1,000 times. Actually, when I play the record now, I skip it. No diss to that song because I
do all the time also. I don't ever listen to Enter Sandman.
The way I love Wherever I May Roam, like a ton. Still, that's a great Metallica song. I love the way it picks up and then that chorus. As soon as it hits, it just slows down. Like there's just like this down feel that like it just attacks. I don't know. There's just
the beginning of that song also is a sitar they're using. James played. By the way, that was done in Vancouver also too. They did it in Vancouver. That the sitar part that was done in Vancouver. All the extra layers and stuff.
Yeah.
Is that your favorite song on the record?
What's that?
Is that your favorite song on the album? Is that your favorite song?
Favorite song on the album is My Friend of Misery.
Oh,
it's actually, I would say, that Fade to Black, I would say are my 2 favorite Metallica songs.
Wow, really? Is that high up the list, huh?
I love that song. I love Fade to Black, but I love My Friend of Misery. There's something remarkable about that song's composition that I can't get enough of.
You were saying that was supposed to be an instrumental at one point.
Yeah, it was. That was Jason Newsted. So this is the first Metallica album that never had a contribution from Cliff Burton. He was a big part of their songwriting.
Yep.
But I mean, Jason just wanted to pick it up, and it's the first Metallica record without an instrumental. And when he came in, I think Jason just wanted to try to contribute an instrumental just the way that Cliff Burton did, and so James found like a pocket in there where he can write lyrics, and it just stuck. And there was a definitive, introduction, which is, it's goosebump introduction for me. The verses, the choruses, the bridge, everything about that. That middle break part is just gorgeous. Right before the solo.
It's beautiful.
That solo.
That should have been a single, dude, in my opinion. That should have been a single.
Yeah, that should have been a single. And that solo is one of Kirk Hammett's best solos.
I agree 100%. Very underrated solo of his. You talk about like focus on the vocals for that album, for example, with James Hetfield. Like, outside Nothing Else Matters was the obvious because it's a ballad, of course. I would argue that My Friend Misery, the vocals on the album, that's probably the best vocal performance on the entire record.
Yeah, his vocal performance is very clean, very sincere. It's soft. Right. It's almost like he tones the vocals down for that song. I think if you read the lyrics too, if you sing, it is kind of like a bit of a down song to a certain regards, but maybe that's why the song has appeal, because it's just able to find a way to pull you out. There's lines in that song that really stick out. I don't know if he's really done many interviews about what that song was about, because it's not a song that they even bothered to worry about until they played the album in its entirety, which it was the first time they ever played that song live.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was
really played that song live also 2 years.
Yeah, so they've only played it like 3 or 4 times.
Right.
Only because they played the Black Album in its entirety. And they would, by the way, if anyone listening is not aware, whenever they played this album live, they've done it backwards. So the songs the last song starts they play it backwards so they can end on their Sandman, essentially.
I get it. I get it.
But they just something about the way that song is delivered, and something about those lyrics have really spoken to me over the years. And the first time I heard it, I fell in love with it. That bass line, that melancholy, that bass line, it just goes. And Jason Newsted recently just said, like within the last 2 weeks, that from when we were taping this, that he did a self video that he did from his home, like a little blog thing of him opening
he's my neighbor. So he lives down here.
Yeah, okay. So he was opening the album that he was sent, the box set.
Yeah, I saw that last week.
So he did in that, it says something about that. There's the lyric sheets that are replicated in that album. But he says, not until James hit the vocal booth did you even know what his lyrics were going to be. So he kept everything so just lock and key. No one got to see his lyrics. He's a great lyricist. He's an understated lyricist, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just beautiful. That song is beautiful. So yeah, I absolutely love that song. I don't get tired of hearing it. That's for sure. Same with The Unforgiven on that record. It's just gorgeous.
The Unforgiven is actually probably my top 3 favorite Metallica songs all time. Yeah,
and hearing it live, goosebumps.
Yeah. They played live actually. When I saw them in 2017, it came out pretty good. Yeah. No. That album's amazing. Like, when I say it's not my favorite record of all time of theirs. Now, okay, when you tell like someone like me who's a super fan, that's not saying much, because I love all the records. I can even sell you Saint Anger to some degree. Saint Anger obviously being a shitty production, but Saint Anger had good songs. Had good songs. The production was just terrible.
You had that CD and you're like a minivan.
He's making fun of me back in the day. Like, fuck you, that was terrible.
You're the guy who listens to this record the way that a lot of people just listen to Injustice for All or Ride the Lightning. Yeah. It's cool. They love you for that.
I think a lot of it too for me back then too was also because of the fact that the lyrics and the messaging of the album and knowing what they were going through that time, I think it kind of hit me a little more, because it's a very personal album for James, especially. He just came out of rehab, and
that documentary around that album really.
We saw it together. Did you guys see it together at the movies?
Together, we did go see it together. You're right.
Yeah, that's right. Theaters. That's right.
We did, but they all because of the Black Album. Everything changed for them.
Yeah, for better or for worse, I think, musically.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you wanted to go over track by track, but
okay, we could do that. Sandman #1, of course. You know, it's arguably the biggest, most popular heavy metal song in the genre. I mean, when you think about it.
Yep. I mean, they
So,
played at football games and hockey games and soccer games. Soccer moms know it.
the greatest closer of all time baseball history. That was his. It was his intro. Mariano Rivera.
It's a part of American culture, man.
Yeah.
Now it's a part of global culture.
Sad but true. Again, I'll say it again. That riff, that I mean, every time I hear that song, I want to break something.
What a great riff. What a great riff. And that is heavy. That is a cruncher. That is one that I still, when I listen to in the car, it has to come up just a bit. You know, the volume has to get turned up just a bit. Just to hear that.
Yeah.
Just to hear that stop, snare, and then that snare reintroduction. Pop, 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 boom. So good.
That's a song also to me that told me, yeah, Bob Rock knows what the fuck he's doing, because a lot of the little things. This is where Bob Rock's great, and we can all sit here and criticize Bob Rock, and yeah, he's part of the reason they sold out and all that. But musically speaking, though, a lot of the little things that he did on that record that made that album amazing, like the pacing of that song. Again, the original demo of that song was a little bit faster. That song is not the same. It was faster. The fact that it's slower gave that song more room to breathe. The wrist more to breathe. And then the ga 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 with the ga 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 with the guitar, not just the drums, with the guitar. Ga 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 ga. That was Bob Rock.
And how many people still try to emulate that, like riffs like that? Those mid-tempo riffs became a part of metal lore. I mean, new metal based itself around that mid-tempo kind of.
That is correct.
I don't think Metallica. I think Metallica had an influence in a different regard, but a lot of bands from that era, including one of my favorite all-time bands, Helmet, like they built themselves around that mid-tempo groove. I don't know if Sad But True had anything to do. Actually, Helmet was a band before all that anyway, but right. That fans may have been able to pick up what those bands were doing because they were able to enjoy something like Sad But True. And a band like Metallica just doing it, coasting, like you don't need to do that. They do it on the next song, track 3, Holier Than Thou. Whew.
That song actually sounds great live now. They've played that in recent concerts in the last like 8 years. There was one of my favorite clips of theirs actually was when they played that song. I think it was 2009 in either Mexico, what it was. It's on YouTube. I play it all the time, and it sounds great live.
Yeah, it's not a super. If you isolate the drums, that song is just like locked in, like 120. Like it's at a quick beat, like doom ba doom ba doom ba, and it's so like a lot of people just hear this as thrash. No, the intro's pretty thrashy. They're good at that. With that.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Bob Rock wanted that to be the first single.
Yeah, but that because that's a way of bringing people back in. It could have that would have still crushed as a single. And then there's that part in that song that I absolutely love, where it just stops, bass and drums. That's it.
It kicks back into guitar. If you hear it live, actually, if you see it live in that same video I was talking about from like 12 years ago, it looks cool with the.
Kid in middle school, after that album was getting spun, used to run around telling everyone. That's the only line that everyone kept getting stuck in that from that tune was, "You lied so much, you believed yourself."
I love those lyrics, by the way, in that song.
His lyrics are the best.
Yeah. The Unforgiven, the 4th song on the album. Like I said.
Yeah, great.
To me, first on the album.
And I remember the first time I saw that video too. I remember the first time I heard that song. Because remember, I didn't have the album for months. So I only heard that. I mean, whatever I could snag off someone else, but the video made the hell of an impact that I just that one still stuck. That is a beautiful song. That is a perfect song.
It is.
That's another perfect song. Just front to back, it hits. That's another mid-tempo groove. I just like, to me, the chords sound very dissonant when they're playing that, but that is great. And of course the guitar solo in that song just absolutely destroys. I think that's a James Hetfield solo too.
Well, Kirk did the solo. I'm not sure James wrote it, but Kirk did. No, that's Kirk's solo. Because Kirk actually wrote it on the fly.
But yeah. That's right. I remember hearing that, something like that. He just came in and was upset, but
it's on video. Bob Rock gives him shit because he didn't practice the solo, and Bob Rock's like, "Well, you gotta fucking do it. He has to do the fucking solo. He has to do it." And him and Lars and like they're getting into it, and like Kirk's getting pissed off, and then Kirk just fucking does a solo like like after like the third take, I think it was something like that. It's on the documentary though. It's really fascinating though.
It's
Um,
beautiful. The way that he trails the solo off at the end to lead right back into the
yep.
to the lyrics again, to the bridge. Well, I guess it's reversed.
So that song changed my life.
Yeah.
Because when I heard that song at 15, turning 16, remember when I got Metallica, 96. Um, I was, obviously, and you know this too. Big church goer at the time. I was still going through that phase, that awkward phase of trying to figure out who I am at that time. Being someone who's in church, but also not understanding that, I still want some freedom. And that song kind of sort of changed my life a little bit, lyrics and stuff, and just kind of giving me a little more, like, a bit of focus about where to go in life and whatnot. That song was a game changer for me, lyrically, especially.
Great. It's a great song.
It
Still
is.
hold up, by the way. Still hold up. They still play it live a lot. It's still one of their staples. It's still a crowd favorite.
Yeah.
I know that we already talked about my favorite song, but it's my second favorite tune, but I think for a lot of fans,
Yeah.
that's the song. But
It's
yeah.
definitely my first song on the album. Well, no, second first song on the album because Through Never is my first song. But
Yeah,
we'll
if
get,
you get the vinyl, it's the first song on side two of the vinyl.
yeah. Track
Wherever
called
I'm, wow.
Romy.
I love that intro. I love that song. That's a great song. That was a song that I never got tired of hearing. And I also so before I got the Black album, I bought the cassette single,
Mm-hmm.
Wherever I May Roam, and that was the first time I'd heard Injustice for All, but that was the first. So when I got Wherever I May Roam, the cassette single, the side B of that was a live version of Fade to Black,
Yep.
and that was the very first time I ever heard Fade to Black, and I
Oh,
was stuck on that song more than I was on Wherever I May Roam. I could turn on MTV and see Wherever I May Roam, but hearing Fade to Black was live in Minnesota. Woo!
but
Woo!
so kids, by the way, this is the podcast. Singles were a thing, and we used to buy singles too. Metallica singles are cool to buy though because they would always attach cool shit to them. They'll cool, they have the song, but they don't have like live versions of the song on whatever tour.
Yeah, B-sides were usually live cuts. They always recorded a lot of their live shows, and they still give live shows. Like you still get live shows everywhere with them. They're still very much a part of what they do. They give live shows away for free now. It's great.
One of my favorite singles of all time, it's hard to find, is the one single that came out, I think, in the early '90s from Japan. And there's a version of Sanitarium on there that I love, but you can't. It's not easy to find. You have to. It's a Japan single one though, not American. So it's hard to find. I had it years ago and I lost it.
So good.
It's so
So
good.
that's probably why Wherever I May Roam has a little sentiment to me because of that. I
Yeah,
hear Fade to Black on
of
that.
course.
I wish I had that cassette single again because I would love to just put that one in. I actually have a cassette player now, so I would.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that again.
Trev,
And then it's Don't Tread on Me.
don't put on me. MAGA. Metallica's MAGA. I'm
It's a
joking.
cool tune. It's better than the MAGA.
I know. So
Uh,
this song was,
it ties into the album work that I don't know if
huh?
I don't know if viewers or we will see, but it ties into the album work. The Snake.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Stupid story. Don't tread on me. The flag, the
Yeah.
libertarian. I had that. You remember this? I had that flag. Remember?
Oh yeah.
I had that flag though, not because of the movement, because I wasn't libertarian then. I was a Republican, but wasn't libertarian then. I had that flag solely because of Metallica, because I thought, Metallica attachment because of the song. But that song was a little controversial at the time too, because that song was being made around the time where the Gulf War was happening.
Yeah.
So at the time, James was looked at as this conservative, like, gun hog and all that. He's a hunter and all that. So there's a little bit of not big time, but there's a little bit of controversy at the time, because of the war and all that.
He is fairly conservative in some regards. I know he's not.
No, he's not. He's not heavily conservative. He's conservative in terms of guns and whatnot. He's not. He's not into politics. He hates politics, though. He hates politics.
Yeah, Lars kind of ratted him out in an interview and says, "Yeah,
Oh,
he
well,
we know how he votes, but he doesn't vote." He's like, "Believe me, no one in this band is a Trumper." So,
no.
yeah, that's another story. We won't
James,
get it.
well, James is pro gay riots and all that. He's in shit about politics and all that. He's a gun guy. He's conservative. Liberals. Lars is the big liberal of the band. He's a big time liberal. Big time. Like
Yeah,
Rachel now liberal.
yeah, I know. He's a Danish immigrant.
Yeah.
I'm not ruling that he'd be conservative, but he brought those he brought something else to America with him. So he has the gun thing. I know he's a big hunter and whatnot.
Yeah.
I don't see. I never saw the gun issue as like a left or right thing. Anyway, I know that people who are conservative would say, yeah, it is a liberals want to take guns, but I always tell people, and it's still true, I still know more liberals who own guns than I do conservatives.
Yep. So do
and
I.
I can name them all. I'm not going to publicly, but I can trust me. I do.
Me too. I can also too. Track 7, Through Never, my favorite song.
Great tune. It's become I think a staple of their catalog too. But I don't know how many if they play it live much. But I think for fans, it's become another one of those songs that's become a favorite. Through the never.
Best version of that song is on the San Diego concert on the live ship Binford's box. It's much. Mine's actually sitting up there somewhere. Well, somewhere up there. I have the box. I have the actual original box set still.
Yeah, it's a classic. Live in Mexico is on that too.
Right there. That's right there. Right there.
Mm-hmm.
Is it with the VHS, not the fucking DVD, the VHS version.
Great tune.
So I love the riff, like at the San Diego concert. You can see James coming in from interlude, like a machine. You know, he holds a guitar like a machine gun almost. And at the beginning, oh, the best. Oh God.
He goes into and then that song's really cool, and then it goes into the hit "Nothing Else Matters," which night and day.
It's crazy, isn't it?
I've heard
the bells here now.
I've heard that song a lot. If I were to give any anecdotes, is the fact that I'm careful. I'm easy to say this, but I've probably heard that song played by cover bands in more countries than anyone I know.
Seriously?
Everywhere I go, that song is covered by everyone. You don't even have to be a metal fan. Non-rock, non-metal cover acts do it. People singing on the street with a piano will play "Nothing Else Matters." Man, first time I was ever researching my book, I heard it in Africa. I heard it, bands covered in their set because it's an easy song to learn. It's an easy song to play, and everyone knows it. And it always does what it needs to do. It just brings the room down. Like it's just, all right, guys, let's just take the foot off the gas pedal for a little bit. And it holds so much sentimental weight and everything. It's a great tune. That solo is beautiful. That's all James, by the way.
That is James solo, yes.
Not play guitar on that song.
That is James. That's all James. Yeah, that's correct. That's all James. That's all James. I love the song, obviously. Wow, James can sing. Oh,
huge on that too. Probably because everything is brought back up front, but the drums get pushed up. I think on that, and I love it.
Right. Room to breathe, like I said.
Yeah, that's easily like one of their most popular songs still because it was a mass. All the songs, the singles released on this album were hits, but Inner Sandman and Nothing Else Matters really are massive hits.
It brought to me, it expanded fan base. Like people who may not want to listen to Metallica before, that song will bring them in.
Yeah, it didn't need. Yeah, I don't know if it was. When they're writing the album, they put it on the album. I don't think they even knew what it was going to do. But here, it's still doing what it needs. It's still doing this. It's still connecting with people. It still has that emotive response from people, and it's still a great song.
Oh, Wolf of Man, number 9.
Yeah, good tune. Don't skip over these. Don't the album doesn't end with Nothing Else Matters, man. The album's still carrying on and still picking up. I think at this point because now the album's coming right back in, and woo.
Yeah. It's this hunting song. This is hunting song. We shift, pulsing the earth. Shapeshifters, like, what the fuck are you talking about, James? Yep. Track 10 for me was controversial for myself. Going again in that time, God that failed.
Yeah, I don't know what that song's about. James grew up in a Christian Science home.
Bingo.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
This is why you connected with this song?
No. Well, that song for me was a bit of like, again, in that time, being involved in the church and hearing that song and understanding what the song meant. But my mom at the time being she's not the same way anymore. Years ago she was like this hardcore Christian. She's not that way anymore. But at the time she sees the title, this as without context, well, it's just satanic. You know what I'm saying?
I had a mother like that too. Art was always with context. You know, you can't show a clip of a movie and have everyone just, all right, that's what the movie's about. You have to see the whole thing. And with this, you have to. I don't know if many people knew James's background.
No.
I think that's kind of what pulled me off when I saw that title too, The God That Failed. But I was already having those feelings anyway. You know about my feelings. We've talked about.
Yeah, it's something you had for years.
But it's I didn't know that about him, and I could see why someone who grows up with that sort of preferred. That's a pretty radical interpretation of Christianity. That they would just I could see why they would just as an adult pull themselves completely and entirely away from that.
Luckily, I stay on the train. I stay on the train regardless.
Yeah, it's fine, but that's pretty intense, man.
Yeah.
But it's a great tune, and again, this is James Hetfield just exposing himself, which he did it, I think, in a few songs already on this album. I think with especially with Nothing Else Matters.
Yeah.
And I think he does it in The Unforgiven.
Yeah.
But this is one that's another one. This is a personal story of just exposing himself.
Right.
Make it who he is for now. He's not hiding behind anything. I've always felt Metallica's had very sharp lyrics, but this is great. This is probably, and again, this is probably why this album is really successful, because people were able to connect to something like this.
Track 11, your song, Misery.
Misery, another song, just emotional hit. I don't know what this song's about, actually. I'd like to hear what he talked, what James has to say what this song's about, but it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about this song. It is beautiful, though. And if you are listening to this and you want to hear, I mean, don't be ashamed to start this album with that song. Just go for it.
Just go. It is, to me, the most underrated song of the entire album, that I will say.
Track 11, baby.
And, of course, the last one, Struggle Within. The Struggle! That's so sick.
Yep. That's a great way of starting the song. This album crushes. Look, it actually starts off, Sandman's a mid-tempo, rager, but the way this album ends,
yeah,
the last three songs for me just go, but The Struggle Within, that's a way to end that song, boom. The struggle. Yeah. And I love that part, that Goosebumps with just that syncopated guitar. But then he starts right over that. And that's a really cool way to come in to a song lyrically. Wow, just go.
Typical riffage.
Yeah, I don't know what the runtime is on this CD, but if you have this on CD,
to something.
Metallica record. Just let it replay. When I finally got this album on cassette, I think Through the Never was the first song on the second side. So I think that's you could buy it on cassette. I mean, this album still sells like a bazillion copies. Who knows?
I was right. 63 minutes.
Yeah. This is the best-selling album in SoundScan history. 63 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it still is. It's still the best-selling album of all time per SoundScan. So since 1991, you can't even touch these numbers. All these great, big, massive albums that have come out, including Pink Floyd's The Wall or Dark Side of the Moon, that still sells a boatload of copies. Shania Twain, Hootie and the Blowfish, Alanis Morissette, Celine Dion. They can't touch what the Black Album's doing. It's just up. Something still sells a few thousand copies a month.
The only album I think it's sold that much in the last 3 years is Thriller. That's it.
You think?
Thriller's still selling 1 million a year.
Yeah. I mean, that's just up there. Thriller came out at like what
82.
Yeah. I mean, the SoundScan thing is different, but
basically talking about my two favorite artists of all time, Michael and Metallica.
What does this one have? Like 55 million sold or something? 35 million?
Thriller?
No, Black Album.
Black Album is at 30 million plus.
Still, and there's still people discovering this record for the first time, which is why it's still selling.
I remember in '96, 5 years after the album came out, it was still in the top 100 Billboard charts.
Yeah, it took a while to get off, then it came back on.
Yeah.
It's still
so sick.
No matter where I go, like I said, like where all the places I've been to around the world, if I walk into a record store and they had one rock album,
that's the album they have.
It's Black Album. It's just there. It did it. It's the best sounding album I've ever heard.
Mm-hmm. Mine too. And it's certainly rock album I've ever heard.
Yeah, and if you know me, you know how many CDs and albums and that I have, and how many I still buy a year, and it's still the best sounding album ever.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of musicians will say that. A lot of fans will say that. Probably has a lot to do with why this record has the wheels that it still has.
Yep. I still enjoy it.
I'm glad to talk to you about this record, man. This brings back a lot of memories.
Oh, absolutely, man. So, you're back to play music again?
Yeah, yeah. I played guitar for a long time, and I stopped playing. I stopped and started, stopped and started. But I stopped playing since. I mean, I met you in 2004.
4. Late 03, late 03, 04.
I answered an ad that you guys had posted about looking for a guitar player when I was living in South Florida, and yeah, so I met you as a guitarist. The first time I met you in person, I was auditioning for your band,
Right.
and then it didn't work out. But I kind of stopped after that anyway because I just couldn't find the right
Not only
people.
that, I think at the time too, we were trying to start a band, and then I went back to my old band.
Yeah, sense of being.
Yeah, we went back to there, and then we did what we had to do, and then, but you as
9:26, you're about to get a train whistle.
but you had at that point you had stopped doing music in general.
Yeah, I was still burned. I mean, it was nothing on you guys. I left Pittsburgh with my band that I was in. I also stopped playing, and I loved them. And I just loved being in the band because it was just we had a sound that was kind of ours, and it was heavy metal, but it was just we didn't really fit, and we liked it that way. And so whenever I was looking for something like that in Florida, and it just wasn't going to happen. So I stopped playing entirely about 2005.
Yeah.
And I didn't pick up the guitar again, and like the way I have. So
that train. Makes awesome background music
for a house, and this is why I want to get away from the train line. But so I played with my band's reunion shows, and that was it. I came back to Pittsburgh. We played a few reunion shows, and
I remember that.
Yeah, I sold all the gear I had so I could start buying airline tickets to get to Africa.
To do the book, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, before that, I just was curious. I wanted to see what these places look like. So I went to Zimbabwe in 2007. I sold all my musical gear to go and do it.
Remember that?
Yeah, I mean, our band was awesome, but 2020 was such a drag. I had never stopped keeping up with these guys. I love them. They're my best friends.
So what happened? So what's you guys broke up in 03, 02?
Yeah. And the drummer, and the drummer and the bass player never stopped playing. They even played in a band or two together, after all this. So for the last 18 years, the drummer at least has kept going. He's played drums in other bands, and he's done vocals actually in other bands too. And then our vocalist completely dipped out, but we still kept in touch with them. And then our bass player just kept playing music with other things. He also plays guitar, but then I was the one that was the pariah. I just kind of stepped out, and then after last year, especially when the drummer always wanted to keep the band going. He wanted to find a way to keep it. He knew it's so important to him, and he knew it was that important to us. And I think in my head, I was just denying it. I was like, I already know what happened the first time. I don't want it to happen again. But then last year, it was the right time. Last year was the right time. It just wasn't right.
And now you guys are back together again. You guys write new songs and stuff now?
Yeah, man. Our first album came out in 2002, so it's gonna be 20 years old next year, and we're gonna finally release a album 20 years later. We have 8 songs written for the new album. We're gonna record it next February. Well, February 2022, we'll be recording the album. We did that. We set a date to give ourselves a goal, so we have something to work toward. Otherwise, you have nothing. Right. So otherwise, you keep yourself moving. You keep yourself moving forward. So we set a goal, and I have to be honest, and I'm excited for you to hear the music whenever we get it, but I cannot be any more excited than I am about what we have. I didn't think it was going to be this good. Partially because of me. I didn't have the confidence to. I didn't know what I could do. I didn't know that I could play guitar again. I didn't know that I could actually pick up the guitar and even try to write music, original music again.
Yeah, because I remember when you were done, you were done. You just didn't care. You were into your focus was books and then your book. Then you really got locked. You went back to school, and then after that, you really Africa became a thing.
I still do that. I mean, college and all that was a big thing of mine. And I knew that we have a mutual friend that wanted me to play in a band with him. He's a drummer.
Mm-hmm.
If I could say his name or not, but Shane.
But our friend,
Yeah.
my friend, yeah, Shane, yeah.
He wanted to try to start something with me while I was down there in Florida, and that just didn't work out. And I knew why, and I had a different heart. I blew him off one time so I could just stay incomplete, so I could finish reading a book that I was reading. And that's when I knew this isn't. I no longer have the heart to play music.
Shane's a good drummer too. That's for the record.
He's a great drummer, and I completely dissed that. I mean, how many guitar players? I think people would have to hear how good he is too. But how many? I mean, he could be in Lamb of God if he wanted to right now. But how many guitar players? He could be in any band right now if he wanted to. But how many guitar players would just completely diss that?
That's how you knew you were disconnected.
I knew 3 drummers in South Florida that were very good, and 3 drummers in South Florida that wouldn't stop calling me to play in bands with them. And I mean, I think because we got along well. That's the start. It's always hard to find people you get along with. And to completely put bands together, you need people you get along with. And, these guys all wanted to start their own bands, and they knew I played guitar, and they knew I liked the same bands that they did. So, see, I like the same bands that Shane did because I like these guys, and I like the hardcore bands because I love I came up to the hardcore scene. And, the other guy, these guys wanted to start this post-metal stuff, and I was like, I love this stuff. This is what I really love. So, but with Negative, it's Negative 13 music. That's all I can say. It's heavy metal, but it's Negative 13 metal. We say, what do I say? We're a punk-infested stoner sludge doomcore band with melodic influences.
Hey man, 2021, anything is possible. Come on now.
And we just did what we wanted to, and I'm glad to do it. As from a personal thing, it's really good. It's really good to have a creative outlet again, and it's really helped me, man. 2020 was just beyond distressing.
So you're doing that. You got the new book coming out next May, you said, right?
Yeah, tentatively May. Yeah.
Oh, and are you doing anything else? Any other book ideas beyond that, or?
I want to write about foreign policy in Africa and the United States' visions of it. I have a few ideas for a few books about certain events in African history that were shaped by American foreign policy that I want to write. That's where I'm that big of a nerd.
No, it's not about that. You need some.
That's really what my interest is as a political scientist, and I'm not really a historian. I don't consider myself one, but yeah, the history.
Speaking of foreign policy and whatever, this Afghanistan thing. What's your thoughts?
Deep breath.
A lot of shit. 20 years worth of shit.
I mean, when we first met, one of the biggest, you couldn't escape it. Everyone had an opinion about the war. I mean, America was still in a collective PTSD and the collective shock over September 11th, even a few years later. I mean, we met in 2004, but it was like two and a half years after all that because we met in early 2004.
Yeah, late 03, early 04, yeah.
America had just gone to war with Iraq. Afghanistan had already been going on, and then it was still so fresh. And I remember being such an anti-war guy that I wanted us out, but a part of me didn't think that the Afghan mission was bad because of what we could do. But then knowing American foreign policy, and this is regardless of your political views, I'm not ashamed of my liberal political views, but I've always thought American foreign policy, regardless of who was in charge, was just atrocious. We faltered over so many things and we get so many things wrong. Our American military complex the military industrial complex is so big. This is one of those things where it's just so large as a business model that there's too many chains to get up. Whenever you're trying to build a nation, whenever you're trying to establish stability in a nation, you can't have something to be this big. It needs to be small. It needs to be concentrated. It needs to be focused, and an idea needs to be front and center. That's where America failed in Afghanistan. I think, and to an extent, the whole world failed Afghanistan too.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen. I know that the Taliban, has said that this is going to be different. I don't trust them. No one does. I think they're absolute piles of vermin. I wouldn't trust anything that they say. I mean, that's one thing I think the whole rest of the world agrees on, even Afghanis. Unless you are in the Taliban, you're just a pile of vermin. I mean, no, sorry, that came out wrong. It's the opposite. Like everyone, they are the vermin of the world. They're
right.
I don't get it. I mean, this guy who's now leading the country, who was pardoned, by the way, last year by the United States under Trump's administration, and was given validation by being able to travel now and to sit as a member of now a group that was recognized by the United States. And Donald Trump said that if there's going to be peace in Afghanistan, or the future of it. And I was like, actually, if there was going to be peace in Afghanistan, it was the United States. It was a Western presence there. And I know this guy has said that he's still okay with having Western journalists in his country, reporting objectively about what's happening in Afghanistan. I don't believe that. That he wants women in his country to be educated. I don't believe that. He wants his country to be a developed country. Interestingly, I don't believe that. I hope he proves me wrong.
Of course, we all want to be proved wrong.
I hope he proves me wrong, because a lot of people deserve better.
Of course.
Regardless of my views about America's presence around the world and our American military complex, I think anyone who's a member of the armed services, not just from the United States, but from any other country that was there, from other Western countries that were there, and knowing what they lost, knowing what we lost. I know Afghan veterans. You know Afghan veterans. I know people that didn't make it back. They deserve this. That's it. And if we're mad at what's happening now, I think we're all still pretty upset. But if this guy actually, if we all get proven wrong, then okay, that's at least what they deserve, more than anything else.
Let me ask you this: Joe Biden is withdrawing. Pull the plug.
We didn't win this war, Ernest. We were never going to win this war. We never won this war. The United States never had full control of Afghanistan. There was so much infighting within, and so much corruption within the government that was elected by the Afghan people, that was, and again, endorsed by the American, like people around the world saw this. This is the American puppets. It's easy for people to have these views. Then, now in hindsight, what are we going to see? What are we going to see 5 years from now, 10 years from now? We're going to have another conversation about it. That Afghan government was not good. They weren't stable. Yes, people voted for them. They were absolutely destructive and corrupt, even to the very end. They were calling each other out on these things. The elected president of Afghanistan fled on the day of the Taliban. Before the Taliban even reached Kabul, he was already on a flight to Uzbekistan. And then he ended up in, now he's in the United Arab Emirates.
Right.
Karzai stayed. The guy who ran against him called them both cowards. It's like, now he's going to have to go sit with the Taliban to try to negotiate. Like, the Taliban is loving this, because they're saying, see, in their heads, they're going to provide a form of stability. But whatever. I don't actually believe democracy is always the best. Democracy only works when there's a level of economic stability in a country. Political scientists have been arguing this for years, and they've been publishing papers, and the numbers have always shown that it's actually true. Whenever countries hit a certain level of development, and GDP development stands at, like, the GDP line stands to about 14, 15 grand. I'm probably wrong on the numbers, but there's a line. Whenever you cross that line, then you can have political stability. You need economic stability first. I think if Afghanistan surprisingly becomes a very healthy, developed, middle income nation, at least, what happened with the Arab Spring is going to happen in Afghanistan. After a while, people are going to say, hey, we want democracy. And it's the Taliban is now just going to be a group, even though, they're just going to be an ultra-conservative group. But if they're just going to be now just a political party in the country, and they're going to try to run for a state, and the people say no, All right, I'm okay with that too. We don't have to love it, but the Muslim Brotherhood won their elections in Egypt too. I don't have to love it, but that was the will of the people.
I just think like, especially with the events of last week, there's so much intellectually dishonest like rhetoric stateside with both parties, but especially on the right side, I would say.
You shouldn't. Foreign policy being debated like this is hysterical because someone like me who even is a liberal can just call out liberal politicians because I know ultimately what our history is.
Right.
After the Second World War, the United States became basically the last super democracy left standing without without much. We had our attack on Pearl Harbor, but here we were. And then we just basically determined what happened. There was the Truman Doctrine that happened that was born after that war that decided that we're going to pump a bunch of money in the country so long as they support democratic values. That's where we went wrong.
Right.
Right? And it doesn't matter. Yeah, Truman was a Democrat. Eisenhower came after him. He was Republican. And then, here we come. You can name all these presidents. You can name Nixon.
Kennedy, Nixon,
Kennedy, Nixon, Johnson,
Carter, Reagan. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. The Bushes, both Bushes, Clinton, Obama, it doesn't matter. America always trips over its own foot whenever it comes to nation building, whenever it comes to democracy. There's a great anecdote that begins Fareed Zakaria's book, The Future of Freedom. It's a brilliant book, actually about democracy. And the opening anecdote that starts the book in the introduction is about when Kazakhstan, when the Soviet Union fell apart and all these countries were starting to come to be, and these former Soviet states, Kazakhstan had invited a bunch of American representatives, elected officials, and political scientists to come and help them write a constitution and get themselves set up because they wanted to model their country like the United States. And the best part about it is everyone, like no one showed up because they said that's actually a really bad idea.
Right. No, it's fascinating because like you can argue that every administration from 2001 on, the last 6 administrations, all share responsibility.
Not Biden, wasn't Trump. I don't know if Trump making a peace deal with the Taliban was a good idea, as much as I don't know if this was, but Trump also wanted to get the troops out of Afghanistan. A lot of people wanted it out because the war wasn't going to be won. And we could go all the way back to Reagan. Hello. This is when the Taliban was born. We gave them money, man. We gave them weapons. This was the Mujahideen. These were the sects of the Mujahideen. And here they were with American weapons taking over their country twice. They've done this twice now. And yeah. And as being this vermin, these guys, some of these guys aren't even Afghani. That's what I don't get about this thing. It's a pretty, we'll never understand it. I mean, I don't like this argument that people also have about having like, well, this isn't compatible with Islam, democracy. Yes, it is. The five largest democracies in the world are Muslim countries. So 5 largest Muslim countries in the world, yeah, are democratic states. So yeah, I said that wrong. I meant to. That's what I meant. The 5 largest Muslim populations are democratic states.
That's right.
So yes, it very much is. And by the way, all of those countries have democratically elected women to lead them. So it's not Islam. It's failed foreign policy. The Truman Doctrine was partially what the Truman Doctrine did was make sure that communism never ran the world. And we can fast forward all the way back, all the way from Truman all the way to Reagan to the 1980s when the Russians started to get a presence in Afghanistan because they wanted that country too. They wanted that country to be part of the USSR. In hindsight, that probably would have been the best thing that ever happened. Honestly, they would have had enough infrastructure and enough, like all of that stuff would have been built. I know they were the godless Soviets, but honestly, those countries aren't really that fucked up. The countries that are now part of the former Soviet, they're really not that bad. Interestingly enough, that's where the Afghans, the first places they started to fly to were to Tajikistan and to Uzbekistan. They started to go there.
Right.
So, come on, how bad are those places? But we decided to arm them. We decided to arm these rebels because they're going to fight the Soviets, and that's all part of this whole thing. Let's just flood them with money. And if you've ever read Charlie Wilson's War or seen the movie, it's quite a brilliant movie. You see that famous quote from Charlie Wilson that burned in my head, and that day I repeated it when I saw the news. I woke up just to see that headline that the Taliban had taken Kabul. Was the Charlie Wilson's quote was, we did everything right, but we really fucked up the end game. And that was in regards to the 1980s, because he was the congressman responsible for getting the Mujahideen armed. He was the one who did it. And there it is. There's that quote. There's that quote once again, just searing in my head. Yeah, we fucked up the end game again. We never gave Afghanistan a chance, ultimately. And not just the United States, the whole West, the whole Western world did it. We never gave them a chance. We never gave them any hope. We never gave them I don't think we completely validated them. We never let them actually build themselves economically. We needed to pump a bunch of money into that. When I say we, I mean the West.
Right.
We needed to pump a whole bunch more money because that country is living off of debt. All the money, like, we should have just gone full on. As much as I despise what colonialism did, it should have just been a full on colonial state for. It would have been for 10 years. They would have built that country. They would have gotten it. They would have crossed that line. Jobs. They needed to find something to get people to work, do things. Because whenever you earn your own money, whenever you can start earning your own property, you'll be damned if the Taliban ever is going to come in and try to take that away from you. Because that's all people want, is they want hope. I don't think the Taliban is the answer to that. But, I said, that's one thing I always want to see personally. This SOB who's running the country now, I hope he proves the whole world wrong. He won't, but I hope he proves us all wrong.
Right.
Objective journalism, education for women, and infrastructure.
Right.
He wants to build a developed country. All right, let's see what you can do, big guy.
Right. Last thing. The Steelers. Go week 3 from the season. How you feeling?
Yeah.
Why now?
Yeah, that's a weird transition. Yeah. Yeah.
I know.
Taliban, but yeah.
Looking forward to the season or no?
It's football. It's Pittsburgh. It's football. We do that quite well. It's obsessive football city, that's for sure. What do I think is going to happen? I don't know. If we could just compete, the Steelers always just manage to find a way to do that. We always want to win the Super Bowl, like any team, but I think Buffalo is going to be the best team in the AFC this year.
That's the thing too. Like, it isn't like you look at the AFC right now, and you don't get the feeling. They're probably solid, but like they're not one of those teams we're talking about now. They're not one of those headline teams now. Like, you have the Kansas Cities, and you have the Buffaloes, and Miami's coming now, and
the city's got the rock star quarterback, and they got who's his name, Hill, who's a great player. They got superstars, but they got the rock star quarterback. Like having Steph Curry on your team, everyone wants to watch them. Miami, I'd like to see Miami do well. That'd be great.
I
love the Dolphins, man, and so do you.
Me too. I root against the Dolphins once every 4 years. That'll happen in December. They'll play the Giants down here. I'll be going to that game.
Except, yeah.
The Giants, whatever. We'll see what happens to the Giants. No, I think Pittsburgh now a little off the radar. I remember last year, 11-0 start to the year, and then they.
Remember, they were going to like Washington, and by the way, since we have been on, good for Washington for changing their damn name.
I am having a hard time. Okay, I'm gonna do a podcast with this probably the next couple of days. I'll on this though, but I am still having a hard time not saying Redskins.
Yeah. We'll find.
Not because I'm against it. Just the fact that I number one, I'm an NFC East guy, so I play them twice a year, so it's ingrained in my.
Once to see the team play, you're gonna play whatever their new name. You'll get used to it, especially when they beat you. You'll be slamming something like, damn it! You'll be pounding your fist like, damn it! Football team. But I knew we were gonna lose that game, and I wanted that loss. They needed to be brought back down to earth, and there wasn't a control spiral that came out of it, but we got pounded. Our schedule really they were just tired.
They
That
got,
loss just showed. We played that. I think that was a Thursday night game. We played that like.
that was a definitely odd day. There's not game yet.
Yeah, we had games last year like on Tuesday. Oh gosh, I'm glad it's not going to happen this year. But we lost our bye week game like in week 4 or week 3.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee, like, damn that man, they ruined. We were supposed to have our bye like in week 9. We would have been. Oh, what if we would have been 9-0 going into our bye week, and then we could have. We weren't going to go undefeated, but
Right.
hey, Washington was a good football team last year. They won their division. I know wasn't the best division, but and they were the only team that actually had a competitive game against Tampa in the playoffs.
Right.
I mean, I thought that was going to be like, I was like, wow, Washington can really pull this game out. At one point, I watched that game against Tampa in the playoffs. I thought they're going to be a much improved team. So we'll see what happens.
I think maybe you guys being off the radar a little bit might be beneficial for you guys.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't think they need to start 11-0. I think we get also if we get 10, forget how many wins Mike Tomlin needs. But he passes Bill Cowher.
You'll get it. Got it.
He'll be the second most winningest coach ever in the Steelers' history.
Behind Chuck Noll. Right.
And the great Chuck Noll, which that was before my. I mean, I was alive during Chuck Noll's Steelers years, but hey, I didn't appreciate the heyday.
I caught the tail end.
Could have done it unless he would have gotten all those wins, the same amount of wins as Bill Cowher, and how many less years? I mean, how many less years that he took him to do it? And I mean, I'm not going to be that guy, but I just good for him for doing it. But I would like to see Big Ben. This was likely going to be his last year too.
Yeah, I think so.
So let's see what he can end on. I'd like to see between 12 to 14 wins. I'd like to see at least the push all the way to the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
I think if we had to play Buffalo in the AFC Championship game, if it's in Buffalo, I don't know if we'd win. But if it's, I mean, I'd love to see that. I'd love to just see, like, just come on, guys. This is the last. Tomlin and Big Ben, one more magical run. Right to the end. I think our defense is going to be awesome. Young and awesome. Depends how the O-line does for us. If we're healthy, we could really do this, man. I think we can have a good push, but quietly. I think Cleveland's going to be strong. I think Baltimore's going to be strong. And I think Cincinnati's going to be strong. If this Burrow can stay healthy, that guy is magic, man. That's
great. I like him a lot.
Yeah, what a great player he is to watch. But so we got that's our division as Joe Burrow, Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, and Big Ben. Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. They're right there. Watch this season with those 4 quarterbacks in that, because there's a possibility all 4 of these quarterbacks are going to be in the Hall of Fame. And this is it. Like, they played last year mostly. Burrow got hurt, had to miss it. But this year is possible. You can see a full season with these guys just going at it. Mm-hmm.
We shall see. And remember, you take 7 teams to the playoffs now, so there's that extra.
Yeah, we got an extra game this year. Damn, I forgot about that. We play Seattle. Our extra game is against the Seahawks.
Yeah,
that was the game that was out.
I'm kind of hot and cold the whole thing. Like, I kind of like it, I kind of don't like it, but whatever.
That's going to be here. The AFC has the home games next year. The NFC has the home games.
Oh, okay.
So Seattle comes here. So at least the road trip thing for us is usually pretty brutal on the West Coast, but. Oh man, like what I don't like is that Seattle doesn't play Cleveland, they won't play Baltimore, they won't play Cincinnati. Like that's that thing about you got to play. You should play those other teams in that division
to even it out.
Yeah, so I wonder. So does the NFC? What is that? The NFC West? Does they play then our division? Is they like that extra game? Like do the Bengals play the Rams? Do the Browns play the 49ers or whoever's Arizona? Arizona's a tough team this year, I think.
Well, I know you heard my bold statement of the season. I think with the 7 teams in the pro conference now, I think the NFC West takes all 4 teams to the playoff this year.
You think San Francisco is going to do it?
All 4 of them going to the playoffs. All 4 of them.
I can legitimately see those three. I could see the Rams with Matt Stafford. I mean, that's a team. I'd love to see the Steelers and the Rams in the Super Bowl. That's already happened
The
before.
Rams game. You guys played in 1980, so
I'd love to see that Super Bowl. I missed that. And Aaron Donald, Pittsburgh guy, but I want to beat him. I'd like to see. I mean, you know me. I'm still an old school guy. I'm a Rust Belt kid, and I like cold weather. I like the cold weather teams playing in meaningful games. So I'd like to see. It usually is always anyway cold weather. All the dynasties are cold weather dynasties,
Right.
But I'd like to see a good Rust Belt championship game with the Bills and the Steelers, and I'd like to see the two cold weather cities going at it. What if the Packers and the Steelers get that Super Bowl?
Mm-hmm.
Again, like what if Aaron Rodgers and Big Ben right here, right at the end of their careers, get to go at it for a Super Bowl title, man?
Well, we'll see. I mean, if I'm, I say this every year, obviously, but I'm looking forward to this year. I really am.
Yeah, that extra game adds a little excitement for me, but I don't know.
A little watered down, but whatever. I'll get used to it.
We got to stay healthy. Every team does. That's what I don't like is that yeah, and plus, we've been. I know they've added games during our lifetime, but we got so used to seeing this like passing records, rushing records, sack records. No team's gonna go undefeated with that. I mean, you're gonna have to win 17 games, man.
Yeah. Of course.
That's right. So I'm like thinking 12. If I say the Steelers, let's see 12 win
12 and 5.
5, not 12 and 4. We have to push it up to 13, man.
13-4. 13-4.
That's a weird record for
yeah. It's gonna take me a little while to get used to that. It's gonna take me a little while to get used to that. Anyway, Eddie, it was fun as always.
Miss you, man.
But you too, brother. It's awesome.
All right. Thanks.
That was good. Good job, brother. So hold on, just finish recording.